Hi and welcome to Terry Talks Movies. This time around I'm mostly doing television. I do have one movie recommendation for you, and it's a little bit of a hidden gem from the 1970s, but I'm going to do that last. First off, we're going to do some television because I looked at the television archive, which I'm going to show you now by turning the camera like that and going like this. That's part of the television archive here in the back room, and I went through it and thought, a lot of this stuff I'm starting to see turn up in charity stores. So I thought I would do a bit of a recommendation so that if you find them secondhand somewhere, whether on eBay, Facebook Marketplace, charity stores or anything like that, you'll pick these ones up and enjoy them because they are all good. I thought I'd start out with 1970s. This one was released by Viavision, and it's one of the great anthology TV series of the 1970s. Rod Serling's Night Gallery. I liked this one because you usually got about 3 stories an episode, so if one of them didn't hit, the other 2 were likely to. Really fascinating stuff, adapted from a whole bunch of different authors' works, including H.P. Lovecraft, and they had some really good actors in them. Diane Keaton, Joan Crawford, Leonard Nimoy, and Spielberg directed the Joan Crawford episode of this. This is the full bunch of Night Gallery episodes. And also the paintings in the Night Gallery that Rod Serling introduces the episodes with are pretty damn good as well. It's incredibly creepy at times. Some of the horror stories are a bit humorous, but it feels a lot more like a Hammer anthology series than it does anything else that was coming out on American mainstream TV at the time. Now, this one, it's got a bunch of discs. Look, how many discs is there? It's all 3 seasons on discs, so there's a ton of them there. You may well still be able to find it in places like JB Hi-Fi or Amazon even, and if I can find it at Amazon link, I'll post it. This one is in, it is Region 4, but there's an art gallery of the paintings in here. There's TV promos, lost takes of Season 2, bonus episodes from the Night Gallery Series 1, audio commentaries by, amongst other people, Guillermo del Toro. This one's great to find, and it's not expensive. I've looked around, and bang for your buck, this is a fantastic series to get. Of course, America's probably got a different release of this. But if you're a fan of horror on television, Night Gallery's got to be in your collection somewhere. It just hits often enough for it to be an incredibly rewatchable anthology horror series. And it's great seeing a whole bunch of actors, and sometimes it's at the end of their careers. So you see them hit one last time before they fade off into the sunset. And that's kind of fun too if you're a classic movie buff. And a whole bunch of character actors you know from 40s and 50s cinema turn up in a 1970s anthology series, including people like Cameron Mitchell, Elsa Lanchester, a whole bunch of other people. Great stuff. Recommended. This one's an Australian one from about a decade ago, which is so funny, it's ridiculous. And for some reason, they crammed a card set into the back cover of it. It was released by Madman Entertainment. It's kind of cross between Team America, Thunderbirds, and somebody's crazy fever dream. Danger 5, the complete series. Each episode is the basic plot of each episode is in some way they've got to kill Hitler and stop him from doing something because Hitler survived World War II, and this weird team of mad people have to deal with Hitler, and their boss is an eagle. It was filmed actually in Adelaide. There's the Hitler they've got there, and you get all of these art cards which are mad. You got that? A magazine called Sensible Chuckle. It's time for a celebration. A little bit of a mock Nagel print. And Danger Monthly, always a plaything for the devil's kittens of Hitler's lust dungeon. I would read that. Fake horse. And of course, Hitler giving a massage. I would like to see an updated series of Danger 5 with perhaps a different villain in it, if you know what I mean. And I think you do. But Danger 5, a lot of fun. The episodes were done on a shoestring budget in Adelaide. And it first showed, I think, on SBS television here in Australia. And then Madman put it out on a double disc. Mad fun. And once you watch an episode or two, you kind of get in the vibe of it. It's got a 60s retro feel. So there's a little bit like an ITV adventure series from the 60s or 70s. There's a bit of that about it. They do crazy things with model work, which is really obvious model work, but it's incredibly well designed. So much fun, Danger 5. You should check that one out. Next up, I'll do something from around the turn of the century. And if you're thinking 1900, you probably need to update your calendar. This one was from Comedy Central, TV Funhouse. It was mostly created by Robert Smigel and Dino Stamatopoulos, and it's a combination of animation, live action with puppets, celebrity cameos, and it's about a whole bunch of friends and their hapless friend Doug, who's a human being, who are doing a TV show ostensibly for kids, but the animals take it totally off the rails. They're all crazy and drug-addled and mad. There's your disc one. And each day, like in a lot of children's TV of the 60s, has a theme. It's hard to describe this, but it's transgressive. It's not for kids one tiny bit. And it's just so much fun. And it's got that wonderful quote from Robert Goulet in it.
Do you know Wayne Newton?
Yeah, I know Wayne Newton.
Really? What about
Tell me something. When you first heard Wayne Newton sing, did you think he was a girl?
I just love TV Funhouse. There's a whole bunch of extras there. You might want to check this out. I think I got it a bit cheaply from Amazon. It's also the uncensored version, as Triumph, the insult comedy dog, will tell you. I love this stuff. It's got commentary. It's really great fun. It's got commentaries from Robert Smigel and Dino Stamatopoulos and the host Doug Dale, dirty outtakes and behind-the-scenes footage, video commentary with the animals themselves, Chicky, Jason, Zabu and Dave, and more. This one, it's Region 1, which means that you'll have to have a multi-region player if you're here in Australia. But TV Funhouse is a lot of fun in that anarchic Comedy Central turn of the century kind of way. Then we'll go back to full-on 1960s, and this one I love. It's the complete first series. I don't know how many series there were of this, but I got this one because it's worth having, and it is the best of the best of 1960s cartoon adventure stuff. It's a Hanna-Barbera, of course, Jonny Quest. And I love Jonny Quest. Hoyt Curtin's fantastic theme music. The titles of Jonny Quest were never equaled in cartoons. They were just punchy. It's got the title sequences have got mummies and giant spider robots and lizard men and lizards. I just totally love Jonny Quest. There's the back of it. There's a whole bunch of extras on these discs. And it's got 26 episodes. 26 episodes of anything is a lot of fun, but Jonny Quest in particular was great. Much as I love a lot of the other Hanna-Barbera series like Shazam, I loved, and Banana Splits, of course, with the live action mixed with the cartoons was great. But all of those kind of series, and Mighty Mytor, all of that kind of stuff really hit for me. But Jonny Quest in particular was probably equal top for me with the Herculoids, which I've got up on the shelf as well. Between the Herculoids and Jonny Quest, I was a very happy kid when they were on the TV. I'm still happy when I watch them now. You should check these out. They should be in your collection. You can get blast from the past nostalgia and just enjoy the admittedly fairly limited animation that Hanna-Barbera did. But the sound effects, the voice work, the music, all of that just hits, and it was the best of the best at its time. 1960s for animation was fantastic. We had all of the anime stuff coming over, plus we had Hanna-Barbera to deal with, and of course the Paddy Freleng, and we also had the Filmation stuff. So a lot of good kids stuff came out in the 60s in animation. Let me know if you want me to do a top 10 of 60s American cartoons, because I think there'd be probably 20 to put into the top 10, and it'd be fun to revisit a lot of them. Now, we'll go away from animation for just a minute and talk about a TV series that went 3 seasons and was created by Aaron Sorkin. And I like this. Of course, it is very didactic because it's an Aaron Sorkin series, but I really like the Newsroom with Jeff Daniels and Emily Mortimer. Fantastic supporting cast as well. Starts out with a challenge to American exceptionalism. There's a speech that Jeff Daniels' character does at the start of the first episode that gets him in a lot of trouble, where he actually uses facts to challenge American exceptionalism in an interview. And it's beautifully written, fantastically acted. And the series from there goes to deal with real-world issues in a fictional news format. This one was done by HBO. So there's season 1, there's season 2, and I've also got season 3. They're great to watch, and I love it because of the love of language, just the writing and the dialogue. And it didn't always hit because this kind of stuff is trapeze work as far as television is concerned. Some of it's going to hit, some of it's not going to hit. Eventually someone's going to fall off the bar. But the Newsroom is starting to appear in second-hand stores here in Australia at ridiculously low prices. So it's worth seeing if you can find them. You may have to scramble around a bit to find all 3 series, but definitely worthwhile in the same way The West Wing's worthwhile, even though The West Wing was a kind of utopian vision of American politics. There was still enough drama. There was a fantastic ensemble cast. The writing was terrific. It was in one of its seasons when 9/11 happened, so the tone changed incredibly, and that's reflected in the episodes. This stuff's great. Not something you're going to sit down to get a chuckle out of, unless you're a sick bastard. But it is important stuff, and I think the Newsroom does this for later years when that idea of America being the best country in the world was being challenged, not in a negative way, but in a way that says, here's where we should be and here's where we are. And I like that kind of stuff. Now, there have been a lot of superhero TV series over the last number of decades. Probably the peak of them started hitting in the 1990s with things like The Flash with John Wesley Shipp. And we've gone on into the Marvel and DC era and got many more of them since then. And every kind of story you can tell can be told in a superhero matrix. But this one from about 15 years ago tends to get forgotten. Did okay on a limited budget, and there was a lot of trouble with the studios. It didn't rate particularly well on streaming, but I kind of liked Alphas with David Strathairn starring in it, about a secret government group of people who have superpowers, but not godlike superpowers, more like demigod superpowers. It is unfortunate they've got a thing where there's an autistic character played by a non-autistic actor who has that savant kind of ability. That doesn't particularly hit well to a modern audience where we now have a more nuanced view of neurodiversity. But allowing for that, good acting and some really interesting episodes. So there's season 1. I've also got season 2 where things changed up a bit. Some really good writing in both of these seasons. And it's one of those superhero series that tends to get forgotten with much more, dare I say, flashier TV series coming afterwards. It's not perfect, but it is interesting, and it shows that things can be done on a lesser budget than many of the shows we have now with superheroes in them. And you can still tell decent stories, setting up universes that aren't reliant on pre-existing intellectual properties. But these work, and I picked them up. I mean, one of them I got for $3. The other one I think I paid $4 for. So it's not going to cost you a hell of a lot if you look around your second-hand shops and find both seasons of Alphas. Going to leave some animation for last because I like animation, even though I've already done Jonny Quest there. But this one I've only been able to find series 1 of, and I don't know whether series 2 was released here in Australia. It's a Netflix series which Netflix lost the rights to. Luke Cage series 1, with Mike Coulter playing Luke Cage. Now, I've been a Luke Cage fan since the 1970s when the comics first came out. I collected them back in the day, and unfortunately I still don't have them. But this is a series that worked for me. The idea of a bulletproof black man at a time when Black Lives Matter was just starting, before George Floyd and all those issues came up, was a powerful meme And this series about a black superhero in Harlem really worked, and I think it was effective enough to be uncomfortable for a lot of people. And when a TV series, or a streaming series, in this case, makes some people uncomfortable, you know it's doing something right somewhere. And this one worked for me. In fact, I like all of the Netflix Marvel series that came out, with Iron Fist being down the rungs a bit. But I really like Jessica Jones. I think that one was probably the peak of it. But I still like Luke Cage. And I'm going to have to look online and see if I can find Series 2 as well, because it's like only having one of a pair of shoes if I only have the first season. And they did a lot of stuff with music in this one, in a nightclub, and got a whole bunch of kind of 70s and 80s black American acts into the nightclub scenes. And that really worked. The cast, apart from Mike Cold, is fantastic. Alfre Woodard's in there, Theo Rossi, Simone Missick, and Mahershala Ali. So great series, because it is a Netflix series. And I'm not sure what's going to happen with Netflix series as the time goes on. Having a physical copy of these series, for me, feels important, because there's a possibility they're going to be vaulted somewhere and not released again. And people are going to forget about them and not be able to access them. And I think that would be a pity. Let's get on to a little bit of anime. I'll start with the one that's most like Jonny Quest. And this is a collection that Madman put out. It doesn't have all the episodes of the Venture Brothers, but it's got a good representative sample. If you don't know the Venture Brothers, it's kind of like Jonny Quest on acid, with Rusty Venture, a grown-up version of a kid hero who went on adventures with his father and their bodyguard. Just mad stuff, and so many references live in the episodes of the Venture Brothers that you'll get. There's a Doctor Strange wannabe, there's a whole bunch of other stuff, there's a lot of verbal nods to other intellectual properties. Writing is fantastically funny, the soundtrack's great. Venture Brothers is mad stuff, and I love it unashamedly. I would love to see eternal episodes of the Venture Brothers being made. Probably not going to happen. I think there is talk of doing some new episodes of it. There was a movie made of the Venture Brothers about 1.5 years ago, which was a lot of fun. This stuff is definitely my jam. And there's the ensemble, including Brock Sampson, the big bodyguard. The nature of each character changes over time. There's just so much to love in the Venture Brothers. And it always makes me smile when I see an episode and just let all the cultural references wash over me while I'm watching them. Terrific stuff. Highly recommended. Then we're going to go retro, and this is a very old DVD I've got. Who put this out? Siren Entertainment, which shows how long ago it was. Speed Racer. Now, Speed Racer, I think, is still on Crunchyroll if you wanted it on streaming. But I love Speed Racer. I love that limited animation that these early Japanese anime had. There's something kind of naive and charming about them. Fantastic soundtrack, groovy look to them. I even like the movie version that the Wachowskis did, but I think I like the series a lot more. I've only got this volume of it, and trying to find any others is going to be one of those searches where you go endlessly and probably don't find it anyway. So I've got this as a representative example of Speed Racer. Then we've got a more recent one. I've only got the first volume of this. I know there's a second volume, and I've got to hunt it down. If you don't know about this, it's incredibly groovy. It's from about 5 or 6 years ago. One Punch Man. It's about a guy called Saitama, and there he is there, who lives in a world where there are all these different cities which are named after various provinces and areas in Japan. And the world is plagued by monsters, and a whole bunch of heroes fight the monsters, and there are rankings of the heroes. It's kind of like WWE for superheroes. And Saitama is the One Punch Man. He can defeat anybody and anything with one punch. You get a monster the size of a mountain, and Saitama will punch it like that, it's down. And everybody else is frustrated because they say to Saitama, how do you train to do this? How did you get your powers? And he says, well, I do 100 push-ups and I run 100 steps every day, and that's what I do for training. And nobody believes him, but that's what he does. Very, very funny. Lots of weird side characters as well. One Punch Man is a good gateway to anime if you're not into it, because the jokes are broad, the world it creates is kind of interesting, and it's got a good theme song as well. That then brings me to the movie recommendation I got for you. One movie I watched today. I'd seen it before, a long, long time ago. Found this in a double disc set from Umbrella, which I picked up cheaply from JB Hi-Fi when they had a sale. 1975, White Line Fever. Ignore the pilot episode of Airwolf, which is a much lesser series. But White Line Fever is truck exploitation from 1975, where Jen Michael Vincent plays a guy called Carol Joe Hummer, who comes back from being in the army and marries his girlfriend Jessie, played by Kay Lenz, and goes into Hock to buy a truck. And he's being an independent contractor, an independent trucker, and he has to get jobs from the local distributor, played by Slim Pickens, who's corrupt. Basically, the whole trucking business is lucrative for a big combine of very wealthy men called the Glass House. And they also do things like smuggling cigarettes and slot machines around America as a part of the loads. But Carol Joe doesn't want any of that. He wants to stay clean. He wants to stay honest. And they start messing him around. And it doesn't end well for most people. And Carol Joe starts doing some very clever things like unionizing the independent truckers so that they've got leverage against the bad guys. But the bad guys aren't willing to yield, and they strike back in non-legal ways, including co-opting the police force for their own means, co-opting the legal system as well, and setting Carol Joe up for a whole bunch of stuff. This was written and directed by Jonathan Kaplan, who was one of those guys that Roger Corman trained. And it works really well. There are moments where it's almost documentary. It's all filmed on location in Arizona. There's a bit before the titles where a news person in Arizona of the time interviews a real truck driver about what it's like being an independent trucker. And that gives us context for the rest of the film. So the movie has a really interesting structure. And it's about working people using the power of their labour and power of their numbers to stop themselves being exploited by wealthy and ruthless rich white men. So there's a political part to that movie, which works really well. Jan Michael Vincent's really good, and Kay Lenz is fantastic in it. Supporting cast, you got Slim Pickens, L.Q. Jones, R.G. Armstrong's in there as well, Don Porter, whole bunch of heavy hitter character actors in there. And it works. And it's inclusive and multicultural, even though a black guy gets killed off as part of the retaliation by the rich men, which doesn't really hit for me. I still think it's a good, honest movie. Beautifully shot. The cinematography and the stunt work in this is fantastic. And I think White Line Fever is a real hidden gem movie that you should check out. This one is Region B, and it's from one of the double feature series that Umbrella did a few years ago. But this one is selling really cheaply if you want a copy of it. So you might want to check it out. Perfect drive-in movie. And I liked it more watching it this time than I did when I watched it back in the day. So that's what I got for you. A whole bunch of TV recommendations in various genres. One 1975 movie recommendation, which is really something a little bit special and a little bit more than perhaps people thought it was at the time. So if you enjoyed this video, please like, subscribe, hit the notification bell. You can also support the channel by becoming a channel member or by donating at patreon.com/TerryTalksMovies. Next up, we've got Science Fiction Saturday, and I've got some stuff lined up for that. And then I've got a big imprint release of mostly horror films. These are the October ones. They've come out a bit late. But there's some really good stuff in that, and there's some stuff I haven't seen that I'm looking forward to seeing. So until all of that stuff happens, watch some good movies, watch some bad movies, watch some good TV shows, and I'll catch you next time.